Hey there. Today we'll talk about this distinctly Fender Mustang style looking guitar, at least if you squint your eyes a bit. It's in fact labeled Sakai, and maybe you remember my little video about this Japanese bass I did a while ago, also a Sakai. And in this video, I wasn't quite sure where this brand really originates or if it's an OEM type thing or whatever. In the meantime, a friend sent me a little excerpt from this book on Japanese guitars here. And as we can see, Sakai Moko was, in fact, an independent guitar making company, also doing lots of OEM work and labeling stuff. I think they were sold as like Decca in the US and different names in Europe, whatever. But sometimes they would have put their own brand on there. And this is their take on a Mustang style electric guitar. Pretty interesting, yeah. Let's take a closer look. Yeah, so overall, this would likely classify as a so-called pre-lawsuit guitar today. We're talking, I guess, early 70s here. Why pre-lawsuit? Well, the very short gist of it would be the classic US guitars by Gibson and Fender and whatever back in the 60s. They were very expensive. Not everybody could afford them. And since the electric guitar was on like a huge popularity peak, basically, and every little teenager wanted to start playing guitar just like their heroes, unfortunately, the Stratocaster and the Les Paul and whatever were like out of reach for most people. And Japanese manufacturers saw a little gap in the market there to ship over there at the time um, budget instruments. And of course, they figured, hey, if we make them look like the originals, we will probably sell much better than our original designs we made up to then. And that's how we got lots and lots of Les Paul style looking guitars and lots of SG-ish looking guitars, and also some Stratocasters for sure. This is like an exception to the rule. It's not spot on. It's yeah, it's kind of weirdly proportioned and not perfect, but like you get the main elements. You have like the vibrato system, the two slanted plastic pickups, the slide switches, control plate with the two knobs. That's all very Mustang-ish. So why is it called pre-lawsuit? Well, at some point, Gibson and Fender and others, I'm sure, were just fed up with them, like basically infringing on design copyrights or whatever. So they filed a lawsuit, and that's why your Epiphone doesn't have an open book headstock anymore. Okay, Epiphone is a bad example, but you get it. Why they can't just readily copy existing designs, and they changed it a little bit. Maybe this is even like post lawsuit because it's not that spot on. I'm not sure. There's not that much info about these out there. But we can conclude it's from Japan, it's probably early 70s, and it's supposed to be a budget version of your well-known Fender design. This one here is in remarkably good shape, and I have high hopes that it's just a matter of cleaning, fret dressing, and setup to get it playable. It's also very complete. I'm lucky that we still have the vibrato thing here. Unfortunately, we're missing a little chrome cover. There would have been like a cover plate across the vibrato system here. Yeah, I mean, it's not really necessary, but that's like the only thing we're missing. The knobs are mixed up, volume and tone in the front. Okay, maybe someone just switched the little things. Interesting design on the vibrato itself. Technically, this looks much more like a Jazzmaster style thing with like a bent steel plate on a little knife edge fulcrum there, and this will be the spring. This roller bridge with adjustable spacing looks very garagey. Interesting. But I've seen pictures online of guitars with this style bridge, but different trem arm. Who knows? The pickups look to be very close clones of the originals. They also have like a little radius on the top here. They could have put just basically Strat pickups and would have been fine, but no, they went to the effort to clone these pickups. The little slide switches here. Ah, super stuck. We have to do something about this. And notice they're just on off for each pickup, while on the real guitar they would be like 3 positions, so you can flip the face, I believe. Yeah, I think so. Truss rod axis here at the end of the neck. Kind of awkward to get to, but I'm glad we even have a truss rod. This would be a poly finish, but it's pretty thin and kind of sunken into the grain. You can just tell by the reflection of the little light here. And there's some wear all around, so doesn't feel too plasticky. I actually like it. It has some character. It's not too sterile for my taste. The neck is this actually surprisingly comfortable, like a flat C type shape. Not really a D, it feels like flat and wide, but it's still a C. I actually like that. It's not too cumbersome. And you have these very nice rolled edges here, which make it feel just nice. Unfortunately, they didn't just roll the binding edge in. They also have this typical thing for old guitars where the fret just starts after the binding instead of overlapping. And then they put these massive chamfers on the ends of the frets and like a super flat, like 30-degree angle or whatever. And this in turn reduces the usable playing surface by quite a bit. Look at how far the strings are from the edge. I mean, this should have been like here maybe, but it's here. The fretboard is rosewood, looking pretty nice, a bunch of playwear and lots of grime. The inlays almost look like aluminum from some angle with like heavy sanding scratches. Yeah, I don't know. But at least we still have plenty meat on the frets. So I suppose the little fret dress would be all we really need. Like check out the low positions here. Yeah, there are some dents in there, but there's still plenty for little fret dress. The nut is not your typical Fender style with the 0 fret behind, but check out the string spacing. This is like ridiculously narrow, and there's so much room wasted to the side of the fretboard, especially on the high E string. Like these are like 5 millimeters here, but since the bevel on the 0 fret is also so wide, there's not too much room to go further out. But I suppose I will try to make a new nut and maybe I can gain some more room in this direction here. This, when you play, this kind of feels awkward. And this is actually an important part of how the guitar plays. So if we can fix this situation here, the string spacing, this would make a big difference. Apart from that, you have your typical string tension bar to hold them down. You see those on many Japanese guitars. And 6-line inline tuners with plastic bushings, interestingly. White plastic buttons. The neck itself is some type of this like mahogany looking but not quite type timber, I'm not sure. These are not your typical clusins, but like open on a plate. Yeah, this is pretty budget stuff. But the shafts can be taken out. They're not completely riveted in, so we might have a good chance in cleaning them up and relubricating. Shiny neck. No big dents. Bolt on as you would expect. And yeah, you can see like the wear and the finish here. Lots of dirt and grime. Does have a little contour cut in here. And it's super thin and very, very light. This is like a small light guitar. Oh, by the way, this is almost your Gibson scale length on this one. So close to 24 3/4 inches, but in metric, and like half a 2 millimeters less or something like that. So action wise, we actually have very low action with just about a millimeter on the low E string and tiny bit less even on the high E. But the entire guitar is buzzing everywhere. The neck relief is also minimal. Overall, this is one of the more playable things I had on my bench lately. I guess we would be able to improve it massively. Also, I'm thinking of including some side dots on the edge of the fretboard. Doesn't have it. It would make it more usable. Anyway, let's take it apart and see what we can find. One final consideration before we take the strings off. We have a very low action and it's kind of buzzing. But the bridge is already buttoned out, so it's as low as it will go. And we get these little threaded rods sticking out here, which is, yeah, they're ground smooth on top, but still kind of uncomfortable. And we don't have too much break angle over the bridge to the vibrato system, since these holes are drilled pretty high above the surface. We might actually go for a neck shim to increase the angle, get this a little bit higher, and get more break angle here. While it might not be strictly necessary, I think we could just raise the action half a millimeter and be fine after fret leveling, but yeah, we'll see. Remember, you pay for the entire string, so you use the entire string. Oh, these are tight. Wow, yeah, they need some lubrication for sure. Wow. Yeah, feels like almost breaking them off. Not great. Ah, finally a proper knot on one of those. Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. I want to get rid of this vibrato bar here because it's constantly in the way. And there's a little nylock nut on the bottom. But instead of fighting with this one, I'm just gonna straight take off this entire assembly here. Oh, this is exceedingly tight. Wow. Oh shit. This feels like the type of screw you're gonna break off. Gonna give it a little pounding, maybe that helps. But to do that, I want to lay it flat. That means the neck comes off first. Yeah, there was definitely some moisture some point in this guitar's life, so we get some corrosion. And this can make for really tight screws in wood to a point where you can shear them off if the steel is not the best quality. And it really sucks to extract a broken off screw from an old guitar. So let's try to avoid this. There we go. It's a little marker thing here I cannot decipher. Oh, and we have a stamp in the pocket. E20T. Electric guitar, model number 20 with tremolo system, I suppose. Oh. And it's a plywood body. Huh. For stuck screws, it can help to give them a little knock, and you want to have a well-fitting screwdriver. Sort of like an impact gun. Lots of downward pressure. There we have it. Maybe a general word of caution. Old Japanese stuff is not always Phillips head screws. For a certain period they used something that looked very similar, but was actually their JIS standard screw. And the Phillips screwdriver doesn't perfectly fit. So in this case, Phillips seems fine, but on some types of equipment, you might actually mess up your screw heads. Hey, look, we get 2 springs. That's interesting. Other than that, not too much to see. There's the little nylock nut holding on the arm. Plain cavity. And a little grounding wire, which is nice to see. And in terms of electronics cavity, what we have here, small pots. I should take the pickguard off first. Okay, now let's have a look. There's really not that much to see. No shielding in the cavity, no markings or anything. At least it doesn't look messed with before, and that's always a good sign. Pickups appear to be glued with some compound. I don't think we'll open these up. Maybe if I can find an easy way in, but I'd hate to break a glue line like this. Also no foil shielding on the pickguard or anything. You have these 2 switches with like dual contacts, unused. And for the pot, a little polyester film cap. This thing says Japan at least. I want to find some date codes, come on. This little routed cavity for the truss rod shows some activity. You can see by the torn up fibers here that somebody went in with a tool and turned it without taking the neck off. That's not too bad, but we have a little chip up here almost falling off, so I think we might, yeah, this is loose actually. This should be re-glued. In terms of headstock, one of these little plastic ferrules came off straight away. Let's not lose it. They're not glued or anything. I had guitars where those were glued in before, and this was kind of a pain. But they're just sitting there. Okay, let's remove the tuning machines. These will need a good cleaning for sure. Dang. One of these days I'm gonna get me an ultrasonic cleaner. If you're an ultrasonic cleaner company, please sponsor me. Oh, and you can tell they actually have 2 holes drilled for each shaft, which means they were also used on like acoustic style headstocks, probably on 12 strings. One of these per side, and then like these window style cutouts. Interesting. Let's get rid of this string retainer bar for cleaning purposes. Interesting style of little nut. That's not typical off-the-shelf part, I suppose. So yet again, let's not lose them, please. There comes the little bar. See these little distance things? They're threaded on. So you can kind of adjust the height of this and how far you want it to squeeze down. Interesting. The logo was held on with two little, what's it called, like dress nails or whatever, two little brass nails. Yeah, let's leave it. I don't want to break it. The truss rod was actually completely loose. I just noticed I could turn it by hand freely, so no idea if it works, but at least it doesn't seem broken. The first course of action should be the re-glue of this little missing piece here, so it can cure overnight. And this looks like a relatively straightforward job, just some white glue. The fretboard is just so grimy. I want to try the good old just some soapy water and a toothbrush trick here. I never actually tried this, so yeah, let's go ahead, get some water on there. Usually I'm just scraping with a razor when it gets super bad, but let's see what this does. I don't know. Ah, seems to be working. Guess in some places the grime is just too thick. It's gonna be a mix of scraping and brushing, I suppose. Yeah, curiosity won. I just had to break open one of the glue seams here on the pickup to try and have a look. Let's see. I did not remove it from the pickguard yet because as a little retention mechanism, they put a drop of solder on each end of the little screws so it doesn't fall off, which is very clever, I think, but also means I would have to grind it off and put a new one. Maybe I'll do. Same thing on the screws for the little switches. They actually soldered on the grounding wires there. But I suppose the cover should come off and we can have a look. Alright, I raised it up quite a ways, so let's have a look. What will we find? So as far as I know, the real Fender Mustang pickups are just like Stratocaster pickups with a different cover on there. So meaning 6 individual pole pieces. What will we find here? What the... This entire thing is coming off the base. Just held on by the cable? What? And there it is. Bar magnet. It looks ceramic to me. This is like the coil up there in a plastic bobbin. And a copper looking metal plate thing that's bent up in the middle, like the coil is on top of the copper thing. This acts like pole pieces. Weird. I mean, it shouldn't be copper for magnetic flux. Maybe it's just copper plated. Can I dig this out here? I guess the metal would be the same as this. So is this, what is this? Is this copper? Is this steel? It's just some type of plating. Oh, it's magnetic. So this would be steel with some type of galvanic coating, whatever. Looks like copper, but isn't. So the same would be with the pole piece thing in there. Yeah, I think this is as far as I will take it. As you can tell, there are little threads in the thing, but no pull pieces. So this was likely used in other designs as well, or left over from like a gold foil pickup. Very interesting. And this is what I mean by tuning machines coming apart. Sometimes you cannot take the worm gear out because this is kind of riveted in here, but in this case you can easily take it out. And this is obviously much easier to clean and relubricate. Yet again, where is the ultrasonic cleaner when you need it? This seems to be one of those guitars with a healthy nicotine coating all over. So maybe soap and water won't do, and I'll have to go to something a little more potent, maybe isopropanol or whatever, just to get the slimy grease stuff off before I can get to actually polishing. Round 1, some isopropanol versus slimy nicotine grease. Let's see what we can do about it. Maybe? This toothbrush will have a funky taste tonight, I can tell. Nah, I mean, it's definitely not like new, but compared to before, it does remove some of the grime. I think polishing after this should be okay, maybe? Okay, let's do the other half. Alright, assembly time. Everything got a little bit of polish going on there, so yeah, it looks okay. These unfortunately didn't clean up too well. I tried some different compounds, but in the end, I mean, I'm not trying to build a guitar that looks brand new. I'm just trying to get rid of the dirt and the stuff that really won't come off even with some strong chemicals. It's meant to be, you know. This is the stuff that gets to stay on the guitar. So yeah, let's put it back together. And I'll try to keep the alignment. Some light machine oil. I think I tell this every time I'm showing a procedure like this. The most important part to lubricate is not really the worm gear itself. It's actually these little bearing spots right here where the worm gear actually rotates in. Because if you think of the forces that get applied here, the string is wound on this shaft and it wants to rotate the shaft, which means the little gear wants to rotate, and this in turn kind of pushes the worm gear outward, so we get lots of friction on these two bearing points. So you want to get the oil on there. Like get both sides. Not excessive, but you want to get a drop on there. Okay, now let's make sure we put this together in the right orientation. Should be, let me think. This is a mirror reversal. Yeah, like this. Yep. Get a good turn here to spread lubrication around. Now I like to put a little bit on the bottom, on the base of the gear, as well as the part of the shaft that's riding on the steel plate. And a little bit inside helps so the threads don't rust away too quickly. Yet again, make sure your screwdriver fits. These screws look super tiny, but in fact, like a number 1 Phillips will be way too small and you will destroy them. You need the big one, and this is perfect fit. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but you always have to check this. And while we're here, let's check out the next piece of hardware. This rusty, crusty bridge and vibrato assembly. This bridge allows adjustment of the string spacing. It's very like, I think Gretsch had a bridge like this at some point. Notice this is just a piece of all thread, and they accomplish the radius by having different sizes of wheel on there. So there are two like larger ones and then smaller ones to get the radius. This is pretty interesting. And it should just come off. Yeah, a little bit stuck, but there we go. Why am I taking this apart? Just to basically de-rust and clean everything. See, it just comes apart like that. Super simple. Now all the wheels can come off. The height adjustment mechanism is also just these thumb wheels, and the studs themselves are fixed because they're just regular screws. And there's a little indentation in the base plate to hide the head, so it's flat on the bottom. These are very shiny, but I'm still taking them out just because I want to polish the plate here. I just noticed, while this all seems like a clever solution, the intonation is not adjustable at all. Like, yeah, you can do the string spacing, but there is no chance to adjust this. You cannot even move this on the guitar body. So, completely fixed intonation. Yeah, that's gonna be a compromise for sure. Next, I'll have to take the springs off. And I think we should take note of the initial setting. So just from the top, we get about 2 millimeters of stick out there. Okay, let's see if they designed it in a way where the springs relax entirely before this reaches the end of the thread. This is a little challenge in designing those. So if it's not right, then the spring will still have a bunch of tension on it when you reach the end, and it will just go flying. And this funny little two-spring design means I have to work them both kind of in tandem here. Ah, no, they did it the right way. See? The thread is still engaged and the spring is relaxed, so nothing goes flying. Thank you, Sakai, for designing this the right way. This part in itself is quite interesting. They went to the effort to just to punch these little domes in there, so the springs have somewhere to sit and don't just go sliding to the side. Otherwise they could slide all around until they hit the bolt, and this way they're kind of centered. Now this should kind of come out. This is one bent piece of steel with the arm holding thing here, and the strings go in the back. How can I... okay, so it just goes down, and then you can feed it out. So there is no milled feature or anything for a bearing edge. This is just bent. And on this part, the bearing edge itself is also just the corner of the steel, just a 90-degree angle, nothing fancy, nothing milled in there, no real knife edge, so to speak. Let's clean those parts. This one will need some further attention, not just polishing, because if you look at the arm bracket up here, this is bent kind of upwards and also a little bit crooked and bent forwards in a way. I will try some percussive maintenance and see if I can get this straight. The electronics worked pretty well, and in fact, this was volume, this was tone as it should be. The knobs were just mixed up, so I already pulled those. They're just press fit, nothing special. I think most noteworthy about this is the use of these little pointing arrows here. I quite like those. The pods are standard, small, like what's that, 90mm type. Polyester cap, nothing special. And the little jack is interesting. I think it had some problems cutting out, but that's not due to dirt. That looks pretty clean. It's more due to mechanical connection not being super positive. So I might try to bend this into shape to get it more positive, and if not, I would have to replace it, but I don't see point in replacing the pods yet because they worked quite well, just some cleaner in there. Nevertheless, I will take those off so I can polish the chrome plate. Luckily, these are metric, so good old 10mm wrench. This is actually steel, painted black on one side and kind of rusted on the back. Okay, so can we get any other information from the pods? Apparently not. Usually they say the values on top here, but there's nothing there. No maker's mark, no stamp, no number. Can we get a value from the cap at least? Oh boy, I can't even read that. It says 0.04 and then M59 or 58. So 0.04, that's not a value you would expect. Usually it's like 0.047 or something. Whatever. It worked, it will stay for now. Okay, I did what I should have done from the get-go, and I pulled all the solder points from the little screws there. And that means we should be able to take it all out, and I can probably clean it. And when I have the chance to have the pickguard bare like that, I think it's best practice to apply some shielding tape to this and to the body as well, to like reversibly improve upon the instrument where we can. You know, I don't like to do significant changes to anything if I can help it. I like to keep it as original as possible. That's why I wouldn't use like a shielding paint in the body, but I think a tape should be fine. I mean, if in future decades somebody doesn't like it, I mean, it can be taken out and the glue adhesive can be released with some isopropanol or whatever. Yep, let's remove the stuff. Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with this so far. But remember, the important thing is all this shielding only works as a Faraday cage when there's a solid ground connection. So first of all, you have to make sure that with like overlapping sections like this, you want solid connection. Like I'm just checking for resistance, and you can tell from run to the next, like if this mirror goes to 0 over here, we have good electrical connection. Not my nicest foil job, maybe. I'll be the first to admit. It's a little bit rough in there. Anyways, it does the trick, and most importantly, we have continuity from one end to the other, which I cannot really demonstrate. I can. See? And notice how I put like 2 tabs of foil up onto the top of the body, where there are screw locations, one like 2 for the plastic and 1 for the metal part here. And I didn't do it up here, but in the location of screws, because this is where the pressure locally will be highest, so for best contact. Well, since the electronics are out and neatly accessible, and we already opened one of these pickups, we need to talk about the possibility of modifying this a little bit. And I don't mean changing components yet. I mean making the middle position with both of these on hum canceling. So yes, we need to talk theory, we need to talk RWRP. RWRP stands for reverse wound reverse polarity. I think you might have heard of this before, but what does it actually mean? Alright, Alright, let's recall the steel base plate comes off. We can kind of dig out the magnet. It was just held on by magnetic force and some old glue. And we will basically flip it over. And to keep track, there are like little indentations. Those were facing downwards, and I'm going to flip it over so the indentations face towards the strings. This is like the new orientation. And now the little bit more difficult part is getting the coil out there. Usually it would involve like removing the little solder connections, flipping those over, and making sure you also flip the ground connection. Like otherwise you would have the hot on the shielding, so, and on the metal parts of the pickup you want to flip everything. But in this case, since the coil is wound on this little plastic bobbin thing, if I can get it out, I can just physically rotate it like the magnet and put it back in. It would have the same effect. And there goes the coil. It's a very sketchy operation. The tape kind of came off here. This is just some glue residue. We're almost looking at bare copper up there. And I immediately connected the meter to check, and we still got about 3 point something K ohm. Yeah, this is not my precise thing, it doesn't matter. Just shows me the coil is still intact. And it was like this in there. So all we need to do is flip it over like this and put it back together. So let's see how the connections up here work. That should literally be it. I just put the steel base plate on from the opposite side. So it would have been on this side. I put it in on the bottom. The contacts are not touching, and there's also some tape on there to prevent any shorts. Should be enough room. Just get it back in the cover. There's nothing else in there, just some glue residue. And then we need to take care that the magnet goes on in the right way, which is conveniently stuck to the rest of the electronics here. We want the little indentations towards the strings like this. And this is like as minimally invasive as possible. I don't need to redo any solder connections. I'm not rewiring anything. I'm not rewinding anything. Just like this. Stuff it back in there. I just put the neck back on for a little geometry check before I can go to fret work. The pocket had lots of paint, like thick overspray in there, and the neck wasn't sitting nice. I checked with like a ruler and it was very wonky, so I cleaned it out a little bit, just with sanding, filing, chiseling, not really routing yet. Also, there was this little E20T stamp in there, and I didn't want to damage that too much. So now the neck is sitting very nicely, and I don't know if it comes across on camera, but there's actually a good amount of neck set, meaning angle downwards, built straight into the pocket, opposed to like Fender guitars of the time. And now, notice before the bridge was almost buttoned out, and now I'm up like a good way, healthy way. And if I check along here, it looks all right. Let's see if I can get that on camera. See, not too bad. Also, the neck looks like it has a huge amount of back bow, but I think it doesn't. Checking with like a notched straight edge, to me, it looks to be perfectly straight up to here and then sinking like a fall away. And this would be like the ideal case. You would not expect to see something like that, especially on like a lower end guitar where you get like a perfectly straight neck and built-in fall away. Usually it will be the opposite. Usually the neck will be bowed like that, and then you get like this giant hump up here. I don't know, I mean, fingers crossed, we're not into fretwork yet, but it looks promising so far. This is just sitting here for checking. Let's get the neck back off and start fret leveling. But first things first, goodbye ugly nut. shiny. Not shiny yet. Now that all the threads are shiny, I took the time to clean up this nut slot. No, not really. This is like a string guide because we have a 0 thread, and make it like a little bit more level and straight. And I will make a new one to sort out the spacing issue, just to try to get it as far to the outer edges as possible. And I was just grabbing a piece of bone, but then I noticed, hey, hold on, I still have these blanks of wood I prepared a while ago and never used for nuts. But for string guide, a piece of wood would be perfectly fine. And this, believe it or not, is actually coffee wood. Well, what does this mean? Is it from like a freaking coffee tree? Yes and no. No, because coffee is not really a tree. It's more like a brush or like a bush, and it has like some sort of vine, like ye thick, maybe. And it was sold as a chewing toy for the dog. Whatever, don't ask me. The dog didn't like it, so I took it from him, cut it up, and it felt like very, very dense and super fine grain. So yeah, let's try if it works as a string guide. I put on the neck and the tremolo system thing preliminary, so I can use a piece of fishing line to figure out the spacing of the string here for this rough nut type thing. There's a bunch more sanding necessary and some finessing with the strings on, but yeah, for now, this will do. Well, I guess we have everything together. That means we can finally start the assembly process. And I suppose since we need to do some soldering, let's assemble the electronics first of all. The result looks roughly the same. I reused the original wiring. Yeah, maybe not the best idea. I should probably go with a clean, complete rewire, but I suppose this won't be the last time I take this thing apart, and I can put it on the list for next time to put some nice wiring. But for now, let's get it in the guitar. And that means we have to feed in the freaking ground wire first. Let's hope this is somewhat manageable. Should come. Ah, and there it goes. It was pretty uneventful. And you go there. It helps to start them in reverse until you feel them biting, so you don't cut new threads and mess up the holes. Next up, we go straight for this one. I'm currently doing this without any neck shim in there. I just removed the overspray, or like the big fat amount of paint in the front there. and that improved the neck angle a little bit. And I hope I don't have to make a shim for that one. Short and simple, I like this guitar. I feel like a proper Californian right now. Maybe it's because of this, and maybe it's because of the like 30-degree heat I'm suffering here. What's that in like freedom units? 90? Anyway, about the guitar. First of all, I thought it looked a little bit weird. And yeah, sure it does. I mean, if I just wanted to play a Mustang, I would buy a Mustang. If I wanted a Mustang on a budget, I could get like a Squire. I think they make great guitars that play pretty good out of the box. This thing, however, yeah, it's unusual. What I like about it, it's super light, it's super small, it's thin, it's actually the neck profile feels great. I really love the overall handling of the thing. It's just fun to play, you know. I mean, after I did some work on the frets and everything. The setup is not perfect yet. It would actually need a little bit higher tension strings to pull the neck forward a tiny bit so I get a little bit more relief. Right now the truss rod is like completely slack and the neck is still a little bit too straight. I have like 10 to 46 or whatever on there, I think. Pickups, although they're not made anything like the real Mustang pickups, they sound great and they give you this like clarity and twang you would associate with a guitar like this. The switches are unusual, but you get used to it. I mean, like the most important sound is the bridge pickup, and this is like both together. You get the bridge, which is kind of like a quick select. If you get this one forwards, you have both. The hum cancelling middle position actually works pretty nice. And yeah, switching from the bridge to the neck quickly is kind of a hassle because you need to do like this, and not great. The vibrato works pretty good. It's actually very smooth and halfway in tune. The problem is there's always going to be some slight deviations in tuning, and you could tune it back up if only these tuners weren't the most horrible tuners I ever experienced. And that's even after trying to get them a little bit smoother and oiling them excessively and everything. They're just like so freaking tight, and I almost need pliers to even turn them. It's insane. So right now I actually consider getting replacement tuners on there. Problem, however, is I can't just slap some Clusins or Goto on there because the spacing is different. I would need to plug the holes and re-drill, and it might look a little bit wonky. I'm not sure yet what I do. If I go down the route of modifying the guitar, I might as well put in side dots. I think it's very nice to have when playing. Maybe I can find the chrome cover here one day, but that's not important. Other than that... Oh, about the bridge maybe. You would think this is not intonatable and this would kind of suck, but surprisingly it's pretty spot on. Oh, somebody is welding his roof there or whatever. The intonation of the bridge is surprisingly good for being non-adjustable. I can live with that, no need to change anything. The vibrato arm, I looked into it and it appears to be from a German Hofner. I'm not sure, maybe the arm alone is worth more than the entire guitar. Anyway, yeah, it's fun to play. I don't regret spending 25 bucks on this, and I don't regret putting in the work. Come on. Man. Gotta do roof work in 30 degree, of course. What else? Oh, I think it also really helped that we played it through my little Pearl Uni Reverb amp there. You've seen this in many videos prior, and you might have thought this is just like a Fender Princeton Silverface. But no, it's actually from Japan as well, and it's from the 70s as well. So these two things could have been in the same catalog maybe. It's entirely solid state, and I still love it. It's one of my favorite amps. I'm so glad to have it. Yeah, after all, thanks for watching, and catch you next time, and maybe we'll get something East German next time again. I don't know. See you.